Hey, Joey Starr here. Today, on April 13th, marked 5 years since I lost my mother. And I want to share my perspective on this kind of loss 5 years in. It's my hope that this video will both help me by processing my thoughts and maybe a few people out there who may have or may be going through something similar. There's something about losing your first parent that feels like a head-on collision with reality. As a kid, I felt my parents had existed since the dawn of time and will always be here. Even as I grew up and understood that they were mortal and like everyone else would eventually pass on, I still kept that frame of them always being here because up until then, they always were. Even in the final years of my mother's life with the frequent doctor's visits, hospitalizations, and other struggles, while I can read the writing on the wall, I was still too busy trying to help her to really process what was coming. And if I'm being fully honest with myself, there was probably some amount of denial in the mix as well. In the final months of Mom's life, there was a point of no return when the doctors were certain that she didn't have long and they gave her a certain amount of time left. That head-on collision still didn't happen yet, but I could see it coming. And at that point, I was really pouring in every effort to support her and maintain a strong front for her benefit. I distinctly remember during one of her last hospitalizations where every day I would use my benefit time to work only until noon, drive 80 miles to go see her at a hospital in the Bronx, stay until visiting hours were over, then drive 80 miles back home, get about 6 or so hours of sleep, and then start all over again. When I visited her, spoke to doctors and nurses, advocated for her, etc., I maintained that strong front, but then I'd take a little break and go eat dinner in the hospital cafeteria and catch my breath, which is when I would just fall apart internally, sometimes going into the bathroom to cry. This was the parent who raised me, who was my world from when I was born. My siblings are significantly older than me, and thus had all left the nest by the time I was 3 or 4 years old. And with Mom being a single mother, it was really just the two of us for most of my life. She was strong-willed, independent, hardworking, and did so much to protect me and try to provide me with the opportunities to have a better life than she did. So I knew what was coming. I knew that her time was short, and that the amount of time left was uncertain. She could have gone the next day or a few months later or any time in between. This was a reality that I was facing daily, not knowing each time I woke up whether Mom would still be here or not. So I did have ample time to prepare, but honestly, even if I knew the exact day and time that it would happen, I never could have been truly prepared. On April 13th, 2019, at approximately 6:30 p.m. Brasilia Standard Time, my mother drew her final breath and my world was changed forever. It was more than just losing the woman who gave me life and raised me. It was also the loss of one of the very few constants in my world. Yes, she was sickly the last few years and was not able to give me the kind of support that she gave me when I was younger, and any challenges in my life were already solely mine to resolve. But she was still there. She was always a phone call away or a drive into the next town. Whether she can do anything for me or not, her very existence itself was a source of security and provided me with a foothold in life. That's what I felt was taken away from me. And as I tried to process everything, close her affairs, establish her estate, sort through her belongings, return to work, return to band rehearsals, maintain contact with friends, etc., I started to realize that this world that I live in, where my mother was no longer in reach, no longer accessible, no longer here, just didn't make sense anymore. They say that hard times will reveal who your real friends are. I will add that this applies to family as well. I had a few friends and family who just kind of dropped off shortly after the word got out about Mom. Heck, even a couple of friends who went Casper on me when they knew I was dealing with Mom being sick. I'm not really mad at those people. I can understand how awkward it is to process and or deal with someone else's grief, to go into conversation knowing that they are at a low point in their life and that you cannot do or say anything to fix it. I can understand that desire to remove yourself from a situation like that, especially from someone that is usually strong and cheerful. I'm not mad at those people, but I am disappointed. Some, particularly on the family side, were not a big surprise, but some others were. That's life, I guess. Some may not have liked me, but were cordial for Mom's sake, and others maybe weren't as close to Mom as we originally thought. I really never put any energy into figuring those out, as I was too busy working through my own grief, and whatever their reasons are is none of my business if they weren't going to share with me. I am willing to speak with any of them to make amends if they reach out to me, but I will not be seeking them out. On the other side of the coin, similarly, there were many that really showed their love for Mom and I. And like before, some were no surprise at all, but some others really surprised me in the way they stepped up. In some cases, stronger bonds with family members and friends were a result of Mom's passing. It truly is an amazing and beautiful thing when family members pull together and support one another in their loss. Something that I found interesting in my grief experience was that a lot of people will, intentionally or not, stop acknowledging your loss after about 2 weeks. Almost as if after those 2 weeks that everything is back to normal for you. And it wasn't just a person here or there, it was a lot of people. It was already out of their headspace, and some seemed surprised when they asked, "What's wrong with you?" That my answer was, "I lost my mom a few weeks ago, remember?" When they responded with, "Oh," I half expect them to say, "I didn't think that still bothered you." But grief does not have an expiration date. Another observation that I made, which I heard of from friends who went through similar, is how many people who either have not gone through this, or perhaps forgot what it was like, would have all this advice and just recite the common tropes that everybody already knows. You know what I'm talking about. The, "she's in a better place," or "you have to focus on the good times you had with her," or "everyone experiences loss in their life." The people who told me those things probably didn't know what else to say. They did mean well, but what they did not get was how hearing those things really didn't help, and sometimes even made me feel worse. But the ones who did go through it, the ones who did get it, just offered their condolences, gave me that certain kind of sympathetic nod, and left it at that, occasionally letting me know that they were here for me should I need it. One of my oldest friends who had lost his mother years earlier, who definitely got it, told me one of the most real things anybody could have about grieving. That it doesn't get better, you just learn to live with it better. And he cannot be more right. I've put in the work, I've processed my thoughts, my feelings, I've had grief counseling, I held a special memorial event for her, and I've kept myself as busy as possible knowing that time and perseverance will pull me through this. But as my friend has stated, the loss really doesn't hurt any less. I just process it better and continue to move forward. There are times, usually around a big holiday, or her birthday, or the anniversary of her passing, or maybe just a random time where I am reminded of her a certain way that hits a bit differently, where it's much harder and the tears are a lot closer to the surface. During lockdown, I even had what they call a relapse in my grief, where for a period of time, it was like I had just lost her. But again, time and experience has helped me live with it better, so that those episodes are shorter and farther in between. But it's not all sadness and depression. I've taken solace in seeing what she taught me and instilled within me just by raising me. It's in my actions, it's in the way I care about friends and family, it's in the little jokes that I remember sharing with her. You don't have to be a religious person or even believe in an afterlife to appreciate that my mom and my dad, who I lost a few years later, are still with me because I carry them in my heart in the ways I just mentioned. They are very much a part of my journey even though they aren't physically here. And most of what I do now in content creation, work, and other areas of my life is heavily influenced by my desire to continue making them proud. I don't know who needs to hear this, but I want to say this right now. At the 5-year mark of my greatest loss, it is okay to still grieve. It is okay to miss them and think about them every day. And it is okay to not be okay. The goal isn't to stop crying about it or to just get through it. This isn't a trophy to earn or something to scratch off your list. This is something to embrace and allow to become a part of you. It's not something that you can put a timer on either. The time you need will be different based on who you are and who you lost. But please know that there is no shame in getting help for yourself. So do me a favor. If you lost anyone any time in the past and are struggling with the pain and feel a bit like you're drowning, get help. Any help. It doesn't have to be an instant fix or cure-all. It doesn't even have to make you feel a lot better. Just do something to help yourself. Talk to a friend. Talk to a family member, a coworker, teacher, anyone you think is a good listener, and open up. Even if it's just a crack in the window, open up to someone about it. And if you feel like you might be a burden, do it anyway. If it needs to be a stranger on the bus ride home or a random adult at the laundromat, tell them. You know, sometimes it's better to speak to a stranger because they don't have any preconceptions about who you are or who you lost. If you can bring yourself to do it, seek a professional. If you can't afford it, you can look into some free hotline or even visit your local social services to see what your options are. If you have a good job with an EAP, take advantage of that. It's already paid for and they are there to help you. That's how I got my grief counseling a few years ago. I know how hard it can be to just open up about your loss, but trust me. Please trust me when I say that as hard as it is, once you crack open that door just a little bit, it becomes much easier to open up. And you will be glad that you did. I actually started feeling better as soon as I made the appointment for my first session because I knew that I was doing something to help myself, and that is what Mom would want for me, to continue on and to be happy again. Share in the comments below if you want to some of the ways that helped you cope and process your loss, or what you are currently doing to get through each day with a more recent loss. Your comment could inspire someone to try for themselves, which means that you helped them. And anyone who needs to share something more privately can send me an email at the address in the description box below. And while you're there dropping comments, feel free to share some of the odd things that you noticed when you lost somebody and people behaved in ways that you did not expect. I'm just curious, and maybe some of the other people watching this video might be curious too, and they might feel a little better knowing that somebody else has gone through the same. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and stalk. Laters.